The Obama administration's health care law is one step closer to ending up in the Supreme Court. The White House has appealed a judge's landmark ruling that the law is unconstitutional because it forces Americans to buy health insurance or be fined by the federal government. But if you live in, listen to this, the entire state has been granted an exemption for a key provision. Who better to talk about this than Congresswoman Michele Bachmann? She's here. She opposes Obamacare. She wants Congress to get back the $105 billion already approved for spending, which she says is buried in the health care law. Congresswoman Bachmann, it's a pleasure. Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. How did this $105 billion thing get in there so that the money will automatically be spent unless Congress rescinds all of Obamacare? How did that happen?
Well, it was put in such a way, and let me show you. This is the health care bill, Judge. It's so big we have to put it in 2 books, and I've marked all the places where Speaker Pelosi and Harry Reid buried the spending, and it adds up, like you said, to $105 billion, $464 million. How did they get it in there? This is highly unusual to put spending in an authorization bill. And the best way to describe it is to say, we in the federal government could give a free ticket to Disney World for every American. We could authorize that. But until we allocate the money, appropriate it, nobody's going to go there.
All right, why?
And what Speaker Pelosi did is she combined both the authorizing and the appropriating. Nobody expected it, including the Congressional Budget Office.
All right, why is it that certain states have been granted exemptions from it? Today we learned that Maine, the state of Maine, has been granted an exemption from virtually all aspects of this bill. So if you live in Maine, you don't have to comply with health care. If you're running the government of Maine, if you're the governor of Maine, the legislature in Maine, you don't have to raise taxes and spend money as the feds tried to tell you to do in that bill. So question, how does Maine get off the hook and the other 49 states don't?
I want a waiver for myself.
Right.
I bet you do. I bet the people in the state of Minnesota want a waiver from Obamacare. This is an admission of failure. And, Judge, worse than that, it's a denial of equal protection under the law per our Constitution.
Yes.
One more constitutional challenge, one more reason we have to defeat this bill. And the good news is we have a remedy. We're going to run out of money to fund the government on March 18th. We have an opportunity to have Republicans come together, put language in that would tell President Obama, you're going to give the money back to implement Obamacare in this clearly unconstitutional bill. And so it's important that your listeners let their member of Congress know and demand that we put this language in the next funding of our government.
All right, if you put it in and it passes the House and somehow it passes the Senate, it would require his signature or an override of a veto for that $105 billion to stop. Otherwise, as I understand it, you and I have discussed this elsewhere, the $105 gets spent and there's nothing the Congress can do about it. Those checks are just going to start to roll, whether the cash is in the bank or not.
It's already rolling, Judge. People need to know that President Obama is putting Obamacare in at lightning speed. He's already written over 6,000 pages of rules and regulations. Today, as you and I are talking, they are spending $5 billion right now this year to implement Obamacare. So we have to get this money pulled back, or what we realize, the president's been given post-dated checks for the next 8 years of over $105 billion to implement this bill. We've got a chance to pull it back. People can get more information on my Facebook site, but what we really need is to have them call their member of Congress and demand, don't spend one more red cent on government unless Obama gives it back. And what that could mean then is the continuing resolution may not be able to get through.
Well, if the continuing resolution doesn't get through, that is, if the government's authority to spend money stops on March 18th and the government closes down, except for the essential parts of it, who will get blamed? Will Republicans in Congress like in '95, or will it be the Democrat in the White House who's out of touch with the times?
I think it will be the Democrat in the White House who's out of touch with the times. He needs to explain to the American people, Judge, why he didn't bother to tell them that he was spending $105 billion of their money. I think that's a big issue. He's got to explain why nobody knew about this expenditure.
All right, Congresswoman Michele Bachmann, like your fellow Tea Party Republicans, you have a lot of work cut out for you. Keep up the fight, and thank you for joining us here.
Thank you, Judge.